I have to accept.
Welcome to our Theory You Around the World series, where we at BDU have the pleasure of engaging with remarkable practitioners who apply Theory U across different countries and fields. These conversations offer a unique opportunity to learn from their insights and experience. Today, I'm honored to host Laura Pastorini. Hi, Laura.
Hi.
Laura is part of the strategic team and staff of consultants and researchers of the Presencing Institute, leading the work with Theory U in Latin America. She teaches Theory U at the public university in Uruguay and the different institutions worldwide, and applies it with governments, institutions, NGOs, international agencies, and social projects. She has over 30 years of experience applying different embodied methodologies for human development. Laura, thank you for being with me here today.
Thanks to you, Danielle, for inviting me, and happy to contribute with Bidu.
Thank you. So the first question I always ask is, I'm kind of interested, what drew you and what drew you to start working with Theory U to begin with?
Yes. Well, it was, I don't want to say by coincidence, but because I don't believe in coincidences, but I first encountered Theory U through embodiment. I first knew Arawana Hayashi. I work with embodied methodologies for human development since I was 17 years old. So I really, that has been a pillar for my work in different areas. And I am also a constellator, family and organizational constellator, and in an organizational constellation training by Infusion. I met Arawana and I said, well, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. What is this? And what really struck me was not only the power of the embodiment tools that Arawana and Theory U and the Presencing Institute bring to the world, but also how it was in service of a social transformation, of awareness-based transformation in the world. So it really struck me, this combination of embodiment and how the social arts, which I'm also really familiar in my formation with social arts, how it can be put in service of transformation and used as a tool for personal transformation, and also for being aware for the different dynamics that happen in human systems and that are kind of the leverage points for change.
Can you take us back to a moment when you realized the power of using social arts and embodiment work for transformation? Like,
well, I think that particular practices like stack is a practice that we use to explore stuck areas or not evolving aspects of a system, things that are kind of frozen in a system, problems, conflicts, tensions that we normally want to get out of. And for me was really revealing how not to try to fix problems or fix stuck points in the systems, but go and lean into them to find the treasure, something new, fresh, completely unexpected that lies there and has a completely different quality of change. It's kind of abandoning the change at the level of results and going deep into your sources of knowing, the knowing of the body as an instrument. I mean, that's where nature is in ourselves, and that's something that nobody can take away from you. And also seeing the power of transformation that lies in the very core of things, of hard things. And so I think the experience with Stuck was something that really opened and changed my approach to conflict, to tensions, to problems. And I think a particular moment in time where I got really, I really said, well, saw the power of Theory U was Gaia. And I think you have a pretty similar story with that, Gaia, because when we were having this conversation, and Gaia was exactly that, was the pandemic, a human crisis, a global crisis, a huge problem, a huge stuck.
COVID, we're talking about COVID and the global initiative that Presidency Institute and Otto Scharmer started, global activation of intention and action. That's kind of the buzzword for Gaia. Yeah.
Exactly, because everything got stuck with the pandemic, really literally stuck. And we were stuck as a species, I think, no, globally, like we didn't know what to do, where to go, and couldn't move. And all our programs in Presidency Institute were frozen, were stopped by the pandemic. And so we said, what do we do with this? And so the problem, the stack, gave us a great opportunity for offering a space where people from all over the globe could meet, could sense each other, could like hold each other, see that they were not alone, and see what they could do out of it. And a lot of very powerful initiatives came out of Gaia, including I think also initiatives that are very present today and active today, that are very interesting. So how to find the treasure underneath the stack.
So if we look at, as far as I know, the last couple of years, there's really a surge of work with Theory U all across Latin America. I don't know to what extent it's related to what happened in Gaia and what you're saying now about the various initiatives. From your perspective, kind of what has driven this surge of interest in Theory U in South America?
Yeah. Well, we always say that we need a fertile soil for that. So I think there were conditions for that fertile soil for this to happen. One, I mean, on one thread, the conditions were not not a polarized continent, a very huge institutional crisis. So that was the conditions, the soil of something wanting to emerge. The institutional crisis, the political polarization, I think that gave rise to a lot of initiatives. So bottom-up initiatives, grassroots leaders activating themselves. I mean, there was the ecosystem was very activated, a lot of civil society organizations, a lot of initiatives emerging everywhere. And at the same time, we had the opportunity to work as a team, departing from Gaia, because Gaia started the thread of Theory U in Spanish. We wanted to democratize all the tools and methods. I mean, we are talking now in English, but we have a lot of people in Latin America that don't speak English. We wanted to bring all those tools to our continent in our language, adapted to our culture. And then what happens is that, I mean, we started with Theory U in Spanish, and we were like the first language that opened the field for almost 13 languages, and Hebrew is one of them. So we were opening that first for Spanish, then Portuguese, then a lot of other languages, and today it really spread around the world, the work of Theory U. But what we found also, I mean, there was a very powerful community of social presence in theater practitioners, because when I fell in love with social presence in theater and the embodied methodology that I was mentioning before, that are created by Arawana Hayashi, we brought and developed an advanced, I mean, first basic courses and then an advanced course that created a local community of very committed people from the civil society, social sector, NGOs, so very related to social work in Latin America. And they were, I mean, they supported the development of the landing of Theory U in the continent. And I think that was really what cultivated the soil. I mean, human relationships cultivated the soil, this commitment of the people here.
You mentioned the institutional crisis and polarization, which sounds familiar, talking from here. I kind of wonder, from your perspective, in what way do you find Theory U relevant to addressing these issues? Like, what specific issues or areas in this institutional crisis and polarization have you found Theory U helpful in addressing?
Well, I love this quote from Otto Scharmer that says, when systems collapse, people rise. And I think that Theory U brought to many leaders. I mean, we work a lot with leaders across the continent, leadership in all its forms, all its levels of impact, all the sectors and areas. And I think that people got, I mean, working with a very awareness-based systems change and elevating the quality of awareness in these leaders helps a lot for them to really address transformation. And they get in contact. I mean, we work with different programs, regional and local programs, bringing these leaderships in contact, bringing these leaders together to learn from each other, to empower themselves, and mainly also to share their own wisdom, trajectories, histories. And something that is really important and we try to enhance in our programs is the transversality of Theory U, because Theory U works on three divides: ecological, social, and spiritual. What we call spiritual or cultural could be also. And so being aware that you cannot work in, I don't know, ecology, you cannot work in regeneration, landscape regeneration, if you don't work on social regeneration and building, cultivating the quality of relationships, articulation in territory, but also with within institutions. And so and you cannot work on all that if you don't have a personal deep transformation paradigm shifts that start by working with yourself. So I think this transversal approach has been very useful in Latin America, because there are a lot of silos, a lot of NGOs working on the field, a lot of institutions, I don't know, philanthropists, and I think Theory U brings them together, makes them work together instead of bringing the silos, and also cultivating leaders as change makers, in the sense of not only bringing tools, but cultivating themselves as a tools. When we have a crisis of instruments, I mean, we cannot predict anymore. Tools get obsolete immediately. And so how can we be the instrument? How can we cultivate ourselves as instruments? And I think all those skills are really powerful for people. Yes. And yeah.
So I wonder, kind of, you mentioned about the ability of bringing the leaders together and kind of the impact that has. Like, where do you see if there's any impact stories of that you found inspiring, of what bringing these people together has managed to achieve?
Yes. Well, I think, for example, we are developing this is the third year that we are going to work with what we call ecosystem leadership programs, that are, it's a program that originally was created at the Presencing Institute. But when we brought it to Latin America, we said, well, we love to democratize the tools, as I said before, but it's always like the perception of, colonization, north-south knowledge. And as one of our participants said, Wanda Vitoto, which has a beautiful story, she said, our bodies have entered the academy and the universities, but our knowledge didn't. And that really struck me once when I met her, and I said, well, we have to bring the knowledge. I mean, we cannot perpetuate colonization and we need to really bring the wisdom and knowledge that we have in our continent. So we work very much with ancestral knowledge, ancestral traditions that co-facilitate with us the programs, but we also bring local trajectories, I mean, regional, continental experiences, trajectories, examples of life and leadership. And this story, I was mentioning Wanda because she works with in the periphery of Manaus, in the Amazonia. She has a very, very strong story of being denied her own ethnical group, the Bitotos, has been denied, persecuted, I mean, with all kinds of violence. And so she didn't know she was a Bitoto until she was 25 or 30 years old. And from then she wanted to really, I mean, really make children, women, and all the different ethnic groups in the Amazonia to be unafraid of being who they are, of being indigenous, being not shamed of being who they are. And so she teaches to young children, their traditions. She teaches entrepreneur women to work with their own traditions, work with their own resources to make a living, so they don't have to migrate from the Amazonia, and they can stay and they can also work with their own culture and maintain their own culture. And she also builds political profiles. I mean, she teaches political, she trains some people in politics so they can have influence in the government. And when she came to the program, we did a 4D mapping with her. 4D mapping is like a lived mapping, systems mapping of the whole ecosystem. Her project, the Bitoto Institute, and the ecosystem she works with, to find out some strategies for systems change, or to achieve what she wanted, that was infrastructure, material, and more institutional support to her work, because they were teaching under the trees. They didn't have their own place. And so we did a 4D mapping. It was really devastating to see the reality they were in, because in a map you can see the dynamics that were really stuck in that system. The entrepreneur women were the only factor that was kind of a leverage point in that map. And they realized they are entrepreneurial women. There are 3 women that run the Bitoto Institute, 3 Bitoto women. And they got out with a strategy, a very concrete strategy of that map, but they also could find the fundraiser within the program, the ELP program, another institution that was participating there, that had also an opportunity to find resources and to find a project to work with those resources. So now they have the institute. That was in it was in 2024 in March, and now they're building their Maloca. They call it Maloca, the place. And Wanda ran for politics, so she started her political career. So a lot has happened in some months.
It sounds very inspiring. Yeah. I do want to touch more on what I also found
Just
really interesting.
Just one example.
Yeah, maybe we'll hear more in a minute. But the sentence that you mentioned about how the bodies enter the university, but not the knowledge. So how do you bring an ancestral wisdom into this work? How does that work? As you say, and I think there is some kind of opportunity in theory U in this combination of like West and East or North and South in terms of combination and integration of various knowledge, but how does that actually happen? What role does it play in the work that you do?
Well, first of all, we didn't want to bring this as something exotic or folkloric, or, you know, like to check we have their body in the room. That was my first lesson. So, and even we don't romanticize this kind of knowledge. I mean, the question is, how can we bring this knowledge, and not being that only practical knowledge or spiritual knowledge, but also bringing in this knowledge as an academic knowledge, as philosophy, as a source of wisdom that we need to tap into more, because it's integrated. It has nature integrated. It has spirituality integrated, and not trying to translate everything into our paradigm. So realizing, sometimes we talk about paradigm shifts as something evolutionary, but we have a lot of paradigms at the same time right now in the world. And so it's like opening ourselves to these different paradigms that are very different within themselves, from one indigenous group to another, or tradition to another. You have also the differences. So we work with a council that it's all from all around Latin America. That's organized by a medicine woman, I mean, a very young medicine woman who is a daughter from a medicine man, and has brought together all these leaders and works with them. And they are not only spiritual leaders, but they need to come to a program and to be co-facilitators with us. They need to have some kind of activism, can be social, environmental, I mean, even from well-being, but being very active in putting this spirituality in service of transformation. So we have a curadury, I don't know how you say that. We curate their participation and choose them very carefully. I mean, they choose them. And they co-design the process with us. So it's not that we design the process and they come. So we co-design the process. And we have also a vision council that brings many different views, indigenous views, including Theory U as a guest there, as the view from the north. And what I think is that these ceremonies or rituals or spaces for indigenous and traditional knowledge that we have create what Turner, the anthropologist, I'm an anthropologist, so I really like Victor Turner. He says that rituals create communitas, and communitas, it's like creates together living, creates horizontality, creates communication, weaves relationships in a community. So that's the main goal of bringing, I mean, being in the room with those, also having this knowledge in the room, not only the bodies, but also having, creating an effect of communitas within, and being very aware of transcendence. I mean, that we have something bigger than us all the time, being aware of that. And you can be, I mean, you can be agnostic, you can be an atheist, and just have this consciousness of transcendence and the capacity of together healing our wounds. And I always say, we want to be really inclusive. So in our programs, and bringing all the views that we can, all the context, all the situations, all the areas and levels of impact of people there. And in this inclusion, there is something also about being open to different ways of seeing the world, of feeling the world, of spirituality, of beliefs. So that's really important for us too.
So it sounds that the effort of kind of like localizing the work of Theory U to kind of the very adapting it to the very specific context of Latin America is something you put a lot of attention into doing. And so far, you've talked both about the language, having it in Spanish and I assume Portuguese as well, and then having people that come from different ancestral and indigenous knowledge in the room and having kind of a generative conversation between all of you. Are there any other lessons you've learned about localizing this knowledge that you've also noticed through the years?
Yeah. Well, I learned that we have very similar wounds. So there are some wounds that we want to heal that are very similar. The wound of colonization, the wound of violence, of separation. We had in the 70s dictatorships all over the continent. So there is a story that has to do with, there is a sad story that becomes back to the stack, no? Or the wounds are also a treasure for healing together, because they are very present into even today. I mean, we have these colonial attitudes everywhere and without even noticing, right? And the violence is really, really high and increasing in the continent. I mean, increasing in the last years. And so there is this capacity of holding on, of healing together, that has been crucial to these very different realities that we have around the continent too. And even the language, because Brazil is like another continent, and it's really tough and challenging to have in this program. We had 3 editions, so we have 3 generations living together in the program, 3 languages, because we also have English. So it has been a huge challenge, but I don't know, we Brazilians say that sometimes they really feel isolated, and in the program they felt, some of them told us, we felt really Latin American for the first time here. I mean, that we have the same reality, right? And yes, so those are the lessons learned. And what we found out is that we need this regional approach, like we do these regional programs every year. But together with that, we have been doing local anchorage of those programs. And that local anchorages that we call emerges, like emerging Uruguay, emerging Chile, emerging Colombia, emerging Brazil, those have been really a catalytic power for local transformation and engagement, and the perfect excuse to start different processes. And so this regional approach is like the global, no, but with a local anchorage, is a very good combination for transformation.
So when you bring the people from the different countries together, and I think you have 17 countries in the ecosystem leadership program, am I correct?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So as it kind of, you've already mentioned, it sounds like there's so many social complexities between different countries, people who are indigenous, people who come from other origins in the continent, a lot of complexity and I guess polarization within the group. What have you found effective in trying to deal with all of that social complexity when you do the regional work?
Yeah, well, I think that the systemic paradigm is the paradigm of complexity, as Edgar Morin calls it, and so to learn how to navigate in complexity, you need to have complexity. You need to, go through go through it in flesh and bone, and this complexity also brings the richness of diversity. So when it comes to prototyping, then we explore different approaches. We have been exploring the approach of similar areas of interest, similar themes, similar areas of work. but combining private sector and public sector, what happens when these come together and they can understand a little bit the reality of the different areas and sectors. We have been prototyping around countries, and we have very, very different experiences. So this experience from Bitoto I was mentioning, I mean, it was a country initiative from people and projects that didn't realize that they existed. So they had to come to the program to know each other. That happened, it happened the same with some initiatives from Guatemala, a philanthropy organization that works with social projects, and they met this abuela, the spiritual leader from Guatemala, who is a real strong activist there. And now they work together in every project that they have. So these things happen, but also we have some projects across boundaries, like some regeneration project that connects Brazil, an initiative near Rio de Janeiro, in the back of the Bay of Guanabara, with a similar experience in the south of Chile. So they're really strongly working together and finding fundraising together and helping each other. And then we have some I don't know, political initiatives in Argentina that were inspired by political leaders, from indigenous leaders or political leaders that came to the program. So it's kind of, you have all kinds of initiatives coming out, and I think that's the richness of complexity. No, then you only need to find the thread. And the thread is, I think the thread is acknowledging yourself as human, not being so ashamed of being human in these anthropocentric times, and working deep on source, on the deepest sources of ourselves as humans. That's where all threads come together. You know, it's only a big thread that connects with source and with purpose and with, I don't know, these deepest sources of wisdom that we have, but we forget that we have.
I think that you mentioned the deep work of source, which is a key in Theory U, of course, and we just talked a few minutes ago about ancestral knowledge. And from what I've learned, I think that there is some work that you've been doing in bringing traditional rituals into the combination of the two, right? Like working with source and working with that in a way that gives space for this kind of an ancestral knowledge. Can you say a bit about what do you do with traditional rituals, and how do you integrate that into kind of a professional setting that people are coming for a leadership program, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we make people really aware that if they are participating in the ceremonies, they really need to be there. It's not for taking pictures or, it's for really engaging with that or opening yourself. We always say, get out of the box, no? Get out of the comfort zone. Well, try something that will bring you completely out of your comfort zone and open your heart, your mind, your beliefs to a completely different set of beliefs, and go with the experience. Or you can just avoid that part of the experience, but we encourage people, and very rare people don't attend the ceremonies, even for curiosity, and we have, the Theory U is mainly a process frame. So we have at the beginning this opening for co-sensing and opening yourself, opening your mind, your heart to the new. So we use this a first ceremony in the process for that. Then we use, it's like the opening, and also this ceremony this is transversal to every indigenous tradition, that they honor place, honor land, honor the people that were before. So this initial ceremony always is a an acknowledgement to everything that came before, to the place we're working it, to the people that were there and are there. So it's a movement of humility, of humbleness. And so that's how we open, with humbleness, with humility, cultivating the soil, because as Otto says, humility and humus have the same roots. So you cultivate the soil, it's kind of a movement like this. And so you enter the space completely different. And then we go through the process of co-sensing. Co-sensing means opening the antennas to whatever is happening in the ecosystem, in the system, within yourself. So it's gathering data, deep data and and the other data. And in that place we do this vision council where we bring different voices from the system, bringing in also the indigenous voices. And then we go in the presencing day. So in this you process, you don't go from the information that you gather in co-sensing into action. First you go into a space of not knowing, and in that space of not knowing we cultivate this inner relationship with ourselves to know or connect with nature within ourselves, connect with others within ourselves. It's a moment of more introspective moment, a contemplative moment. And then we have a healing ceremony, because it's kind of after the day where you met everything inside of you, nice things and not so nice things, and you touch your wounds, you have a healing ceremony. And the other day you have a flourishing ceremony that is very good for crystallizing the new you that emerges after healing, the new vision that you were working with, all the different visions that crystallizes in something that wants to emerge, like prototyping. And so for every ceremony has a place and a reason to be there. And so with the flourishing, and it's very lively, the flourishing ceremony, and that's the last one that we do. And yes, I think they have a really relevant part of the flow of the energy also within the almost 270, 80 people that we
Wow.
We are almost 300 counting with the team. Yeah.
Wow. So these rituals that are kind of along the process, what role do you feel they have in shaping people's like overall experience and transformation?
Yeah. Well, I think you go through the you journey while you go with this, accompanied by these ceremonies, right? So in this, in the different moments of the process, and you go, like I told you, you go into this very humble coming in, very opening council of vision, letting new information, new visions, new ways of understanding life come in, and you get in touch with them, but in a different setting. It's not only mental, but it's experiential. And then I think the power of healing altogether, this healing ceremony that normally Nana Malia, this Guatemala elder, runs with 300 people all together around the fire and wanting to be healed, but not only wanting to be healed at an ego level, but wanting to heal our whole ecosystem. That's really something very, very powerful. I mean, you have to be really numb to not get transformed by that. And yeah.
Wow.
So I think and the refreshing, flourishing ceremony on the other day, I think people get really, really transformed, and we had people really opening them up and transforming their beliefs. I mean, we have a very important political leader from Guatemala also getting back in contact to his roots through these ceremonies. And he's always very, very thankful for that. He writes us, I mean, once in a month saying, thanks for making me believe again. Thanks for connecting me with my roots again. And yes, so I think
it's very inspiring to hear that. Sounds kind of very optimistic. So maybe the last thing I'll end with is, if the work with Theory U in Latin America, which you so vividly and powerfully kind of depicted for us in the last half an hour or so, if that was a living being and it could speak with other regions of the world, what would it say?
Wow. I had this image of, I don't know why, I had this image of the eagle and the condor getting together. So this view, and I had the image of being also a whale, a very ancient being, big, carrying on, I don't know, this. And I think the word that came to me, if that being could speak, would be a word that I really love from the Guarani tradition, that we always speak that word, that is Mborayu. And Mborayu means the love that connects us. So the inherent love that we have as human beings, that we have as living beings, the love that holds nature together, that love that holds our species together, the love that holds, I don't know, a mother and a child together, this very primal, inherent universal love that comes, that we all have and manifests when we are in a ritual, when we build relationships, when we care and heal together. And so it would be trust that love, because we are in a crisis of trust. We don't trust our humanity anymore. And what I feel here is that we renew this trust in who we are as human beings every moment. Yeah.
With these beautiful words, renew the trust in human beings. I think that's something I really want to cherish and take to my heart. Thank you so much, Laura.
You're welcome, Danielle. You're welcome. And hopefully this message can spread around the world.
Yeah.